This lamp was bought new by my grandfather's uncle. I would guess sometime before World War I. He liked the lamps with the tulips, but he wanted one with more tulips than the regular tulip shades that they had. So he special ordered a shade with more tulips than the regular tulip lampshade. So he bought this lamp brand new from the Tiffany counter at Marshall Field in Chicago.
This is not a standard Tiffany tulip shade, but a clear special order, designed with a greater number of tulips than usual, and with the blossoms drawn down toward the lower register of the composition. As a result, there is very little soil depicted, and the eye is instead led through a dense rhythm of stems and flowers. The glass itself is outstanding. We see deep red glass with phosphate stringing, sections of ripple glass, and rare drapery glass, all hallmarks of Tiffany Studios at its peak before the First World War. By the 1920s, this range of glass was no longer readily available, which strongly supports a date around circa 1915. The base and cap are original and display what we like to call a righteous patina, an untouched surface that comes only with age and careful stewardship. While Tiffany allowed buyers to mix and match bases and shades, it is increasingly rare to encounter a lamp that has remained together in this form for more than a century.
An estimate for this would be between $150,000 and $200,000.
Okay.
Now, in a retail shop and for insurance purposes, I would put a value of $375,000 on it.
Okay.
So thank you for bringing it in.
Thank you.
They belong to a good friend of mine who passed away 3 years ago in 2005, and he left them to me.
And what did he tell you about them?
He told me that they were Tiffany and that the floor lamp was originally in New York, I think in the 40s, and then he moved to Chicago in the 50s and the 60s, and then he moved to Los Angeles until 1988, and then he moved to Palm Springs. That one he bought in Los Angeles.
These are two Tiffany Studios lamps, and what immediately stands out is the coherence of the collection. Both pieces belong to the family of what I would describe as early geometric Tiffany lamps, softened by decorative motifs rather than strict linear patterns. The larger table lamp features the woodbine pattern, while the floor lamp displays a swirling leaf or lemon leaf design, a motif that Tiffany never labeled consistently but used frequently in the early period. The glass is notably transparent, a key indicator of early production around circa 1905, when lamps still needed maximum light output for both fuel and early electric use. Examining the interior construction and the cap, the signature Tiffany Studios New York, followed by a number with a dash, further supports an early date. Something scholars now associate with early manufacture rather than special orders. Although the sockets have been replaced, many critical elements remain intact, including original caps and decorative components that are often lost over time. The floor lamp rests on a decorated senior floor base, with a finish that harmonizes beautifully with the shade. And I also wanted to point out this little signature tag here. That's actually a very early tag also. A lamp like this, I would recommend putting an insurance value of $85,000. And on this one, I would put an insurance value of $45,000.
Okay.
They're both very nice examples, and I'm delighted to see them.
Great.
My mother found this in the late 60s. There was a little neighborhood newspaper flyer, and she read that there was a glass lamp for sale. And my mother saw it, knew what it was.
And the woman, she also knew what it was. It had belonged to her grandfather. And she had moved into a very small studio apartment. and it was just too large. And my mother asked her, well,
This lamp was produced by Tiffany Studios, the firm owned and directed by Louis Comfort Tiffany, son of the founder of Tiffany & Co. It dates to around 1905, a key period when Tiffany was refining his most iconic designs. The shade is known as the rose helmet, named for its helmet-like form and composed of richly colored Favreal glass arranged in a floral motif. It sits on an exceptional arcan leaf base, a sculptural bronze form with flowing Art Nouveau lines. The stylized leaf patterns wrap around the foot and rise upward in subtly varied relief, giving the base a sense of organic movement. What is especially significant is that the shade and base appear to have remained together since the beginning. The gold lettering inside the shade corresponds perfectly with the gilt tone of the base, reinforcing that original pairing. This particular base is extremely rare, one I have encountered only a handful of times, making this a case where the base is nearly as important as the shade itself. From its etched array finish to its overall preservation, every element aligns precisely with Tiffany's original intent.
Now let me just give you the good news. This lamp is worth between $80,000 and $125,000. Mom had a good eye.
Well, I more or less inherited it when my grandfather passed away in 1964. It was purchased directly from Tiffany. Actually, my grandfather purchased 4 lamps on February 11th, 1915.
Which lamp is this
The
lamp?
one valued at $90 at the time. He picked the cost.
90, and so that was the dining room lamp.
That was the dining room lamp.
This hanging lamp represents a classic Tiffany Studios turtleback design, produced in the early 20th century. The shade is composed of thick, molded glass tiles whose rounded, scale-like surfaces resemble a turtle's shell, a technique that required both skilled glass formulation and precise assembly. The green glass displays strong saturation and depth, qualities that are increasingly rare in surviving examples. What immediately elevates this lamp is its condition. The glass shows no structural weakness, the color remains vivid, and the surface retains its original patina. Even more important is the survival of the original hanging hardware. Most Tiffany hanging shades were separated from their fittings over time, but here the complete system remains intact, preserving the lamp exactly as it was intended to be displayed. Although the lamp is signed, authentication does not rely on the signature alone. The proportions, construction, glass quality, and overall execution are so consistent with Tiffany Studios standards that the lamp effectively confirms itself. This is a textbook example of a Tiffany dining room fixture, combining rarity, craftsmanship, and historical integrity.
I was told about 25 years ago that it was somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 at that time.
Okay. If this were for sale in a retail shop, I could see it selling easily for $150,000.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not.
All I can do is say thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you very
bringing
much.
it. It's gorgeous.
Wow.
So I would love to know how you got this.
My grandfather was a superintendent of the grounds at an estate in Gloucester, Massachusetts at Eastern Point. And this apparently came from the estate. I don't know when, but somehow he got it.
This large geometric lampshade immediately presents itself as an early Tiffany Studios work, even without a signature. Its scale alone is extraordinary. Measuring approximately 33 inches in diameter, this is not a form produced for general retail, but rather a custom commission, likely created for a grand interior. The design features bold geometric panels with an almost Aztec-inspired border executed in glass types known to have been produced exclusively at Tiffany's own furnaces. The condition is remarkable given the size. Large shades are inherently vulnerable, yet this example shows very few cracks. One reason for its survival lies in the internal construction. The interior support fins are placed with exceptional care, following the lines of the design and zigzagging where necessary. They provide strength without visually interrupting the glass, a hallmark of Tiffany engineering. The surface finish is minimal, another indicator of very early production. This lack of surface treatment is typical of shades made around 1900 to 1902. While some of the hardware components are period but not Tiffany, the chains and upper arms display decorative elements seen on early Tiffany bases. The glass, construction, scale, and attention to detail together form a signature stronger than any stamped mark. And it's got Tiffany all over it for me. Something like this in a retail setting could be priced anywhere between $100,000 and $150,000.
Good to know.
So the pole coming down and that semicircle piece, they're not Tiffany, does not hurt the value.
I was the first person at a yard sale. It was $25, and I didn't even argue. I just bought it. And the woman said it was inexpensive because she didn't have the shade for it. And I thought it was from the 30s because of the cord. And I thought maybe the glass was like a fluorine glass, which I know Tiffany. So I was hoping it was a Tiffany or a Handel, but I couldn't find any marks on it.
This lamp initially suggests a later date based on its cord and electrical fittings, but closer examination reveals a much earlier origin. Once disassembled, the construction clearly identifies it as a Tiffany Studios piece known as the Arrowhead model. The bronze base with mosaic detailing is characteristic of Tiffany's earliest lighting designs. This form was originally created as an oil lamp dating to the late 19th or very early 20th century, before electrification became standard. At a later point, likely in the 1930s, the lamp was converted for electrical use. The drilled wiring and added socket do not follow Tiffany's original practices and indicate a subsequent, less refined alteration. Despite the missing shade and later modifications, the essential elements remain intact. The bronze work, mosaic surface, and sculptural proportions firmly place this lamp within Tiffany Studios' early experimental period, when innovation in materials and form defined the firm's identity. We don't have the shade, but despite all that, I would put a value of this at $50,000.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Oh my God! You're kidding! Oh my God!
I'm definitely not kidding.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
You're a good shopper.
Oh my God!
My brother received a phone call from a lawyer, and the lawyer said our half-sister Phyllis had passed and left her estate to my brother, my sister, and myself. She lived in Sedona, Arizona, so I was the one that went to Arizona and went to the house, and then I went into the bedroom, and on her side table was this lamp. So I knew immediately that it was pretty special, and we found markings for Tiffany Company.
This is a Tiffany Studios poppy table lamp fitted with the well-known 20-inch poppy cone shade. The poppy design was among Tiffany's most popular models and first appeared in the 1906 catalog, produced in a range of sizes and forms. At that time, Tiffany allowed clients to select shades and bases separately, reflecting different tastes and budgets. The dating becomes clearer when examining the details. The interior of the shade is signed Tiffany Studios NY, followed by a catalog number, a signing format that was not used until after 1910. The base itself does not appear in Tiffany catalogs until 1910 and again in 1913. These points strongly suggest that the shade and base were paired together intentionally during that later period. The base features a gilded surface finished with 24 karat gold, an expensive treatment reserved for higher-end lamps. The rich finish, along with the form and construction, is consistent with authentic Tiffany Studios work. All major elements are original, with the exception of the sockets, which were commonly replaced to keep lamps functional at the time. All the parts are original, with the exception of the sockets. And back then, it was more important that the lamp worked. But collectors today want the original parts. So in today's market, I would put an auction estimate of $70,000 to $90,000 on this lamp.
Very nice.
And it's really a really fine example.
I inherited the lamp a year ago when my father passed away. Back in the 50s, my grandmother worked for wealthy people in Atherton and Menlo Park area, and apparently she found this lamp that was down in the basement. It was a dirt basement, crusted with dirt, and she brought it home, cleaned it up, and she gave it to my mother. I did some research on it. I found out it was a Tiffany Lotus Bell table lamp.
This is a Tiffany Studios Lotus Bell table lamp. The lotus shade is designed to resemble a lotus leaf gently opening, a motif Tiffany explored in two main forms, the bell shape seen here and a wider, flatter version. Based on construction and markings, this example belongs to the early production period. On the underside of the base, I see the Tiffany Glass and Decorating Company monogram, the Tiffany Studios New York stamp, and a 5-digit number. That numbering system firmly places the lamp between 1902 and 1904, before Tiffany introduced standardized catalog numbers. The shade itself carries a small applied tag stamped Tiffany Studios New York, another detail consistent with this early date. The surface finishes are also telling. The base retains a statuary bronze finish typical of early Tiffany work, while the lettering on the shade shows a browner patina, a natural result of age rather than later intervention. The lotus design here is more geometric than floral, which aligns with the transitional aesthetic Tiffany was developing at the time. Although the switch and socket are later replacements, the lamp remains structurally and stylistically correct. Taken together, the materials, construction, and subtle details clearly identify this as an authentic early Tiffany Studios Lotus Bell lamp. Collectors today are very drawn to the more geometric lamps, which this is. In the condition it's in, I would say $35,000 to $45,000 retail. If you were able to get the switch and the socket back the way it should be, it would be on the higher end, maybe $45,000 to $50,000. Wow.
That's exciting. I love buried treasure.
Me too.
This particular piece has been in our family for as long as I can remember. When I was a little girl, this lamp lived in my grandmother's home. We used to love playing with it. When it was lit, we would call it the brain lamp.
The brain lamp?
The brain lamp, yes, yes.
I understand why.
Yes. We also used to do a lot of dressing up as kids, and we would like turn it so that we could also use it as a spotlight.
This is actually made with turtleback tile iridescent glass, not so-called brain glass. And that is why it has that organic, segmented appearance when illuminated. This distinction is important because turtleback glass is a hallmark material used by Tiffany Studios in the early 20th century. The glass tiles here are relatively thin, which is consistent with decorative lamp production rather than architectural panels, and this type of turtleback glass was very often left unsigned. The absence of a signature, therefore, does not detract from authenticity. The lamp is set on a fully patinated bronze base with the patina carried evenly down to the feet. On one of those feet, there is a clear Tiffany Studios mark, which firmly anchors the piece to Tiffany production. The sculptural modeling of the bronze, including the lily pad-inspired elements, aligns with designs produced around circa 1910. Although a chain has been added later and is not original, this is a reversible alteration. Taken together, the turtleback glass, the bronze workmanship, and the stamped mark clearly identify this lamp as a genuine Tiffany Studios creation. This was very difficult to find. It's extremely rare, and I would say today, in a retail market, you might find this piece at $30,000 to $40,000.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh. Kathy, thank you so much. I can't believe it. Wow.
I ended up finding it in my father's garage. He had an office out there, and it was in a storage room after he passed away, and I was going through things.
And how long ago was that, would you say?
I found it around 1985.
While a signature alone is never sufficient for authentication, the construction and materials here are consistent with genuine Tiffany production. The glass selection, surface finish, patterning, and the character of the lettering all align with early studio standards. What confirms the attribution further is the behavior of the shade itself. When lightly tapped, it produces a faint rattle caused by the gradual loosening of the copper foil beneath the glass. This foil was originally bonded using beeswax, which dries and weakens over time. That subtle sound is a known and reliable indicator found in authentic Tiffany shades. The form suggests this shade was originally designed for a fuel lamp, likely mounted on a base with projecting arms, placing its production date prior to 1906. As a standalone shade, it represents early Tiffany Studios craftsmanship. When paired with a period-appropriate base, it becomes a complete example of Tiffany's early lighting design. As a shade by itself, in a retail venue, this could sell for between $25,000 and $30,000.
You're kidding.
Not at all. I'm not kidding. Now, if you spent between $5,000 and $10,000 on the base, as a whole lamp, it could be worth between $50,000 and $75,000.
Oh my God.
Right.
It's just amazing. I just can't believe it. It's a much bigger surprise than I ever expected.
After an auction, I had gone back to pick up some other items that I picked, and I had become friendly with the auctioneer's daughter, and she said somebody reneged on a purchase of a Tiffany lamp. Long story short, my spouse basically said, get the lamp.
When was that?
2017. I paid $11,000, including auctioneer's premium.
What we are looking at here is a genuine Tiffany Studios lamp made around 1906, originally designed as an oil lamp and later converted to electricity in a correct and historically appropriate manner. One of the most convincing indicators of authenticity is the way the shade and base marry perfectly, with the shade fitting seamlessly into the arms of the base, something rarely seen unless the two were made together. Inside the shade, the flattened interior ring is exactly what I would expect from an oil lamp period piece, as later electrified versions required a projecting ring. The geometric glass pattern, combined with the construction and materials, firmly places this lamp within Tiffany's early production. What is truly remarkable is the condition. After decades of examining Tiffany lamps, it is extremely rare to encounter a shade with no visible cracks and no evidence of repair. The surface patina on the base is equally impressive, showing a deep, untouched finish that collectors often describe as righteous patina. Because it's just gorgeous, it's rich, and it's been untampered with. Recently, there's been a spike in the interest in this type of lamp. This is what we call a geometric lamp. So in today's market, I'd say for a retail price, anywhere between $15,000 or $20,000.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's good. That's very nice to hear.
Well, my great-grandfather was a surgeon in Kansas City, and this was his lamp.
Well, it is a Tiffany Studios lamp, Moorish pattern. Probably dates from about 1910 or so. I'm not exactly sure. You brought us a photograph showing the lamp in the original interior of the house.
Yes.
What's nice about this particular example is that it has all its parts. This is a Tiffany Studios lamp in the Moorish pattern, a design associated with the exotic architectural influences popular in the early 20th century, and it likely dates to around 1910. The overall construction and proportions are consistent with Tiffany's interior lighting from this period. What truly distinguishes this lamp is the survival of every prism. These prisms are reinforced rather than loosely hung on simple S-hooks, which explains why they remain intact when so many comparable examples have lost them over time. The completeness of the components, combined with the quality of the metalwork and design, strongly supports its authenticity and elevates its standing among Tiffany lighting. This particular lamp in the market today in a retail venue could sell anywhere from $25,000 to $35,000.
Great. That's wonderful.
It's a light fixture that hangs in our sunroom at our house.
Did this come with your house?
Yeah, it was in the house when we bought it 10 years ago.
What you have here is a fixture that was made by Tiffany Studios. The construction is immediately recognizable. Small pieces of Tiffany glass are individually set into metal frames and linked together with sturdy connectors, forming a flexible, draped surface known as the chainmail pattern. This technique reflects Louis Comfort Tiffany's fascination with Moorish and Near Eastern design, which strongly influenced many of his lighting fixtures in the early 20th century. What is especially compelling here is the condition and completeness. The fixture retains its original double wire cap, original chain, ceiling cap, and hook, all of which are Tiffany components. The links are robust rather than delicate, confirming period craftsmanship and explaining its excellent survival. Nothing appears altered or replaced, making this a fully original example. The overall design, materials, and construction are consistent with authentic Tiffany Studios production from the Moorish-inspired period. We're comprised of this kind of work. If this were in a retail gallery today, it would sell probably for between $20,000 and $25,000.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's wonderful.
What I brought you is a lamp that's been in my family since about 1915, and it's been part of my household since the late 1970s.
This is indeed a Tiffany Studios lamp, produced by Louis Comfort, Tiffany's workshop, rather than Tiffany and Company. Based on the marks and construction, it was made between 1910 and 1915 and would have been newly acquired at that time. The shade is what we call a damascene glass shade, a type often considered less prominent than leaded glass, yet this example goes well beyond the ordinary. The glass is signed on the interior of the fitter rim, and the metal table base is stamped Tiffany Studios, New York with a catalog number, confirming its authenticity and original configuration. What is especially compelling is the form itself. This is not simply a lamp, but a lamp table, a rare combination that dramatically elevates its significance. In decades of examining Tiffany material, this is only the third example of this form I have encountered. On close inspection, The shade reveals carved insect motifs, encircling natural bubbles in the glass. A clever solution Tiffany used to transform imperfections into decorative features that collectors now actively seek. The metalwork is consistent with early Tiffany production, and the overall design reflects Louis Comfort Tiffany's philosophy of uniting function, surface texture, and artistry into a single utilitarian object. This is only the third one I've seen in 35 years.
That's pretty cool.
And I would say in a retail shop, this could bring between $20,000 and $25,000.
Wow. That's a lot more than I think any of us would have expected. It's very utilitarian for our family. It's in our living room. It means a lot to us in that sense.
Well,
but it means a lot more now.
I agree.
That's pretty amazing.
If the lamp didn't have the table, it would be a $15,000 lamp.
It was my grandmother's. She lived in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Probably about 20 years ago when she died, we all did a round robin, and I was the first to choose, and this was my first item.
This is a Tiffany Favreau blown glass shade mounted on a bronze harp desk base, produced at Tiffany Studios in New York around 1906 when the firm was operating in Corona, Queens. Favreau glass is distinguished by its hand-blown form and rich, iridescent surface, and the color here is especially significant. While these shades were made in gold, green, and other hues, blue examples are far less common and have long been sought after by collectors. The shade displays the classic Favreau character, with a luminous depth of color that shifts subtly under light. It is signed L.C. Tiffany Favreau at the fitter rim, confirming its authenticity. Structurally, the shade remains strong, though there is visible wear along the rim from repeated removal and replacement over many decades, a common issue with desk lamps of this type. The bronze base is original in form, but shows practical alterations from use, including replaced electrical components and missing screw and feet, both typical signs of a lamp that was actively used rather than stored. Importantly, the artistic and historical value of the piece resides primarily in the Favreau shade, which embodies Tiffany's experimental approach to glass and color at the height of the Art Nouveau period. In the condition it's in, for retail would sell between $15,000 and $20,000.
Cool.
If it didn't have the chewing around the edge, it could be as much as $25,000. Maybe even $30,000. But also, if you get these other parts fixed, it will definitely be retail of at least $20,000.
Oh, okay.
Now, once you take this shade off this base is worth about $1,500.
Really?
This lamp was my paternal grandfather's. He was an Irish immigrant and he worked in New York City at, I think, Tiffany Studios. I inherited this lamp in 2017. Now it's my treasure.
And do you remember it as a little girl?
Oh my gosh, yes, yeah. So here's the funny thing about this lamp. My dad could be a little naughty sometimes, so when my mom would go out, my sister and I, let's play tag. So we would play tag around our homes, and this lamp almost fell over.
The Tiffany lamps are made with a really good center of gravity, so it takes a lot to knock them over. And that sense of balance is immediately evident in this example. The construction is solid and deliberate, typical of Tiffany Studios, where stability and craftsmanship went hand in hand. Based on the way the shade is signed, reading Tiffany Studios NY, rather than spelling out New York, this lamp would have been produced no earlier than 1910, and possibly as late as 1920. Stylistically, the lamp is quite classical. The foot shows a stylized Greek key pattern, while the overall form hints at broader historic influences that were circulating in the early decades of the 20th century. The base itself is highly unusual and not one that appears often, which immediately sets this piece apart. Another thoughtful feature is the adjustable shade, which can be rotated to direct light toward a seated reader, a detail that shows how carefully Tiffany Studios considered everyday use. The shade is also distinctive. rather than using Favril fabric glass, which was common on similar models, the studio opted for standard leaded glass. This choice suggests a later production or a practical decision made within the workshop, yet the result remains harmonious and elegant. The bronze base carries a gold-plated, acid-etched finish, creating subtle surface modeling and confirming the use of high-quality materials throughout. This has an acid-etched finish. That's why you see this modeling on the surface, and the shade could easily have been sold separately. In a retail venue, this would sell for between $10,000 and $15,000.
That's exciting. That's so cool.
I was taking a walk in the morning, and I got about 4 houses down from where I live, and there was a sign that said free. And so I walked by it the first day, and then the second day I thought about it again, and I thought, well, I'll take this, and it's pretty ugly, but I can give it to somebody, but it's a lamp, so I'll just take it.
This lamp is a genuine Louis Comfort Tiffany piece, produced by Louis C. Tiffany Furnaces Incorporated, one of the later corporate names used by Tiffany between roughly 1920 and 1928. The dating is supported by both the company name and the construction. The base is cast in gilded bronze, decorated with enamel detailing around the foot, a combination typical of Tiffany's decorative lighting in the early 1920s. The shade is a damascene blown glass example, prized for its soft, flowing form and strong exterior iridescence. The color of the shade is especially important. Tiffany produced these in several hues, and there is a clear hierarchy among collectors. This caramel tone is one of the more desirable options. The shade is intact and signed L.C.T. Favril, with Favril being Tiffany's trademark term for handmade glass with luminous surface effects. The cap neatly protects the rim, which is another positive detail. In a retail venue, something like this could sell for between $10,000 and $15,000.
Oh my God.
You definitely want to get it rewired, because there's absolutely no value in original wiring. And if you broke the shade, the base would be worth about $500 to $1,000. So the shade is very important.
My father was a carpenter. He did a lot of house restorations back in Toledo, but he brought the shade home. He took it upstairs in our attic, and it stayed there, I would say, for at least 30 years. Going through the attic, and we pulled it out. Didn't know much about it at the time. We took it to our house. We wanted to use it.
This hanging shade is an authentic Tiffany Studios New York production, dating to approximately 1906. The pattern is officially known as the vine border, a design characterized by gently curving vines and small leaf forms. Although many collectors refer to this pattern as the acorn, that term does not appear in original Tiffany catalogs. The confusion is understandable, as the leaves can resemble small acorns, but historically vine border is the correct designation. Produced in a range of sizes, shapes, and colors, this design was among Tiffany's more approachable hanging shades. Its restrained decoration makes it highly adaptable, working comfortably in arts and crafts interiors, as well as more modern settings. The glass, leading, and overall construction are consistent with early 20th century Tiffany standards. Because this model was made in substantial numbers and originally positioned at a lower price point, market value today is strongly influenced by completeness. Without the original hanging hardware, it represents a simpler example of Tiffany lighting. When matched with correct period hardware, its historical integrity and desirability increase significantly. But it's not the easiest thing to do, and it is a premium in the marketplace. But if you were to get the original hardware and you did put it on the lamp, this would be worth between $15,000 and $20,000.
With the hardware.
If you could get the original hardware. It's that important and that
Sure,
unusual.
sure.
My brother and I really don't know how it came into our family. I lived in Mississippi in Biloxi during 2005 Hurricane Katrina. And the lamp, I'm going to cry probably. The refrigerator was on the side, washed in another room. We had 14 feet of water. The Tiffany stood in a room, did not get knocked off the table, did not. So, yeah.
I am looking at a Tiffany Studios table lamp with the classic pomegranate design shade paired with what is known as a torpedo bottle base. This model dates to around 1906, a period when Tiffany was at its height in experimenting with richly colored glass and sculptural bronze forms. The pomegranate motif is immediately recognizable in the densely packed glass jewels designed to suggest abundance and vitality, a theme Tiffany returned to often. Examining the shade closely, I can see that the glass construction and copper foil technique are entirely consistent with Tiffany Studios' workshop practices. The pattern, color transitions, and surface texture confirm its authenticity even without relying solely on the signature. There is visible oxidation along parts of the lettering and surface, something I frequently encounter on early Tiffany pieces, especially those exposed to humid environments over time. The base shows a different finish on the cap compared to the body, but this cap is original. The contrast suggests natural wear and loss of finish rather than later replacement.
In today's world, I would put a retail value around maybe $7,000 to $8,000 because of its condition issues.
Yep.
If it were perfect, I would be more inclined to say a retail value of $15,000 to $20,000.
Okay. Okay.
It could be fixed, but it's a little bit of a project. I'm glad that Katrina spared it.
I know. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
I got it from my great aunt, and I believe it's a Tiffany lamp. It has not been converted. I don't know about the shade, what the pattern is, and I would really like to learn how to work it.
This is a Tiffany student lamp representing one of the earliest and most functional forms produced by Tiffany Studios. Its modest scale and upright proportions identify it as a desk or study lamp designed to provide concentrated light rather than serve as a decorative centerpiece. The shade features what is commonly known as a vine border, sometimes referred to as the acorn pattern, a restrained ornamental detail typical of Tiffany's early production. What makes this lamp particularly noteworthy is the use of a leaded glass shade, since most student lamps were fitted with simple blown glass, making this configuration both unusual and early. A close examination reveals a very small Tiffany Studios stamp on the shade, consistent with manufacture prior to 1900. The bronze base bears a 5-digit foundry mark, indicating that the metalwork was subcontracted before Tiffany Studios established its own foundry. The lamp remains in original oil condition with the kerosene compartment intact and remnants of the original wick still visible, confirming that it was never electrified. Don't bring the huge amount of money that the big shades do. Do you have any idea of what it's worth?
I have no idea. I was thinking maybe $1,000, $2,000.
Okay. I think easy $8,000 to $10,000.
Oh my
and
goodness.
Maybe a little bit more. We don't see the very early lamps very often here, and it's a joy to see it.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
It's Tiffany Studio, I know that much.
And how do you know that?
It's on the bottom.
On the bottom, right.
It's not like most Tiffany lamps where there's a lot of stained glass work. I don't know quite why it's so different.
It has a Tiffany Studios mark on the underside, and that immediately establishes its authenticity. What often causes confusion is that this lamp does not rely on elaborate leaded glass, which many people associate with Tiffany at first glance. Instead, the metal shows a subtle brown to green patinated finish, a surface treatment frequently used by Tiffany Studios for its sculptural quality. The shade is a Favreau fabric shade, also known as a linen fold shade, designed to imitate the soft drape of folded cloth rather than decorative glass imagery. This approach reflects Lewis Comfort Tiffany's interest in form, texture, and mood as much as color. Based on the type of switch mounted at the back, which is a later electrical component, I would date this lamp to roughly 1910 to 1915. We can tell that by the switch on the back. This was a switch that was used a little later than when they were originally made. And I would place a value on this for insurance from $4,000 to $6,000.
Really?
It's a lovely lamp, and I'm so happy that you brought it to the roadshow.
It was my grandmother's. It was on her desk, and it was just a lamp in the house. After my mother passed away and the appraiser went through and was itemizing everything, and he said it might well be a Tiffany lamp, but it wasn't anything that the family talked about.
What you have is a Tiffany lamp, and the number stamped on the bottom allows us to date it very clearly to 1906, right in the heart of the Tiffany Studios period under Lewis Comfort Tiffany. The lamp features a classic bronze harp-shaped standard paired with a beautifully modeled pedal base, both showing the organic flowing forms associated with Art Nouveau design. The shade is a green Favreau Damascene shade, valued for its subtle iridescence and the refined surface pattern that softens the light. One particularly important point is that this lamp was made specifically as an electric lamp, not converted from oil. We can tell this by the smaller, fitter rim, which would have been much larger on an oil lamp. Originally, it would not have left the Tiffany factory with a pull chain, since a chain striking the shade could wear the pattern or even cause cracking over time. You want to be extremely careful of this chain banging into the glass.
So it doesn't wear the pattern
So
off.
it doesn't wear or crack it. It could crack it. The value today is $6,000 to $7,000. That would be a retail price.
Okay, great.
My dad gave it to me. After he retired, he started to go to flea markets, and that's
So-
what he occupied his time with.
He was a collector of sorts?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think it's a Tiffany lamp. I love it. I use it. That's about it. I don't know how much he paid for it.
At first glance, this lamp presents an intriguing puzzle. A zodiac pattern bronze base paired with a linen fold glass shade, a combination that is rarely encountered in standard Tiffany production. The base itself belongs to a zodiac desk set design modeled in richly patinated bronze and associated with Tiffany Studios' sculptural vocabulary around 1910. The shade, however, is a classic linen fold form inspired by the look of folded textiles and executed in subtly toned Favreau glass. When examined closely, the shade bears a Tiffany Studios mark and displays construction details consistent with early 20th century workmanship, while the base, though unmarked, aligns perfectly in proportion and fit. From an appraiser's perspective, this apparent mismatch raises questions, yet nothing about the materials, the cap, or the overall construction suggests later marriage or fabrication outside Tiffany Studios. Tiffany was known to allow flexibility in combining components, and occasional variants do surface. The glass shows several cracks in the lower and larger panels, which inevitably affects value, but the cap itself is an important original element and carries significant worth on its own. But again, you get a very good cap, you have a good shade, and you have a good base. So even with the damage, I think probably retail $4,500, right around there. If it had no cracks in the shade, you're probably talking about $7,500 or so.
Okay.
Closer to $8,000.
Okay.
That cap alone could be worth $2,000.
Really?
Yeah.